Blessed love, family. We're live. We're now live. And we'll take a few minutes to ask you all to like and share the video. So we're live on Instagram. We're live on Facebook. Good afternoon. As we say, it's story time. See? Story time. So big up Mama Marimba. Mama Marimba Ani. I quote her all the time. Abaka Sam Soon is coming up. Mama Marimba reminded us that culture is a people's immune system. So today we get to take a dip into the culture experienced by one man through various stages and through various places, spaces, stages, of development, I'm sure, as well as spaces in the world. So I think it's something you're going to enjoy. So I'm inviting you to like and share the video. Give people the opportunity to know that we're live. Of course, this will be archived. So you'll have it on your Facebook, you'll have it on your Instagram, and we'll be doing this for WRFG Radio, naturally. So before I introduce a very special guest, I want to remind you to give a kind of a timestamp. Tomorrow is another solar eclipse, a full solar eclipse. Much has been said about these eclipses, Of course, in the age of social media, all kind of predictions, all kind of everything. You can from one extreme to the other, I think one of the favorite pieces of wisdom that I got from Mama Kijara, Raseki Healing Arts, said during the eclipse, do like your grandmama used to do and get real still and silent, and let nature take its course, But that's just something for the order. Also, of course, WRFG seals up its fundraiser or its spring drive right now at midnight tonight. So if you're a beneficiary of the unfiltered, keyword unfiltered information and inspiration in many different ways. This is through music, this is through interviews, this is through news, so many different ways. Through storytelling, like we're getting ready to be blessed with, through looking at the life through the eyes of the people. WRFG is the voice of the people, and it's been that way for 50 years. Strong, without any corporate support. That's why we've been here for 50 years. And that's why we can say what we need to say without fear of being censored, right? Because we are listener supported. And I know my special guest today knows a lot about the voice of the people, right? And so what we're looking forward to do is to have this conversation, asking each of you who are here with us to like and share the video. This is going to be a book review. There's going to be a book, I won't say a book talk necessarily, we could call it that. And just a Sunday evening story time, like we used to do, sitting around the family table. So this is the virtual family table, but we're here with the same spirit in mind. So again, like and share the video. Let the family know we're live. We're getting ready to get started with the interview. I just want to give a few moments, and I'll send a couple invitations myself. Like and share the video, please. Thank you so much. For those of you who are already on the case, y'all know what time it is. A lot of stuff is said, repeated about how we are our own worst enemy, blah, blah, blah. And that may or may not be true. However, one thing is definitely true. We are our greatest resource. So even when we say, we all we got, a lot of times when people say we all we got, it sounds like a bunch of lack. It's like regret. We all we got, boy. And the other part is, and all we need. We're all we got and all we need. So let's do it. You're tuned in to the Ancestral Rock on your station for progressive information. For those of y'all joining us on Instagram or on Facebook this evening. Don't think it's something I'm smoking. We just talking. We're previewing this. We're premiering this for the radio, right? So you may hear us mention Thursday a couple of times. We didn't get deeply affected by the eclipse. A nice factoid though. Many things have happened during solar eclipses. It was reported that Nat Turner, during the solar eclipse, he received revelation, inspiration, a download, as we say in this modern time. And that's what set off his rebellion and our whole African world. And by extent, by a large degree, because of the African world being beneficiaries of it, the whole world is beneficiaries of it. Why I say that? Because, of course, if the root is well taken care of, the branches will prosper. So we're going to get started. It's very much an honor to be here outside in nature, outside of Mama Nature on this spring day. I pray those of y'all who are out here dealing with the pollen and all that, that you're finding yourself some success. One shameless plug is that local honey. Local honey, if you can find a local honey, that is said to be something that really helps to help us with these allergies that come, and they're becoming increasing in the world. I remember a time when no one was talking about allergies like that, especially with pollen and all that, but this is the world we're living in, you know? And I'm just 20 years old, so if I remember that time, then we're not talking about ancient history, right? So local honey is good, and it makes sense because, you know, as gardeners, we remind ourselves and our family all the time that it's really about doing what Booker T. Washington said, cast your buckets down where you are. More than just sounding like some poetry, that has some very tangible implications. That means, again, we're all we have and all we need. So the local environment, our creator, known by many names and many natures, has given us riches in abundance locally. So we don't have to, most of the time, you know, send for something on the other side of the planet for miracle healing. Most of it is because of a lack of knowledge. We don't know the bush we have right here in front of us. You know, like when we go out and we see the dandelion and we see the violet. Just talking about some things that come up in the springtime and the plantain emerging and all that. Those things are great for the lymphatic system, great for the liver, great for all these things. But anyway, that's another conversation. Just giving y'all some time. So we'll get started with our very special guest. Our guest is Baba Mutema Kudakwashe. I won't tell you what his former name was. Maybe he'll tell you. I will leave that completely up to him. But he is, as I said in the description, an author. We're celebrating this book. I don't know if this is his first, but we'll find out in a minute. A businessman, a husband, a father, son of the soil, a cultural worker. You know, I saw him the other day, not to tell too much of his business, but we were in a village that we both love, and he was skipping like a baby to some African drums, you know. So youthful at heart and an elder to myself, and one who has taken the opportunity to share his experience with the world in a book entitled Famous I Am Not Because of the Ice Cream Blocks. As soon as I see ice cream blocks, I think of Miss Jean, you know. Miss Jean from Buxton of blessed memory. She just transitioned earlier this year from Buxton back then. The intrigue of three countries, Guyana, Canada, and the US, as lived by one man. Baba, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me here, and thank you for all those who are listening in, watching, so on and so on. It's a pleasure having you as we celebrate story time based on almost everything, but principally today based on these chronicles that I've put into a book, as mentioned before. It's called Famous I Am Not.
It's a volume, it's an encyclopedia almost. Thick, you know. Thick. And we want to deep dive. So For full disclosure, family, I have not read the book yet, and I had the opportunity to read it yet. I received it as a gift a few days ago as we were celebrating our Baba AUC on his 99th Earth Strong. So I'm really looking forward to reading this. So I'm going to do something. I want to read just a little bit of the back. This is about the author. And then we're going to ask him to expound on that because we're going to learn a lot about the author today. Because, naturally, if you don't know the author, you don't know what you're reading, right? A part of me, this is a quote, direct quote from the back of the book. A part of me that I am conscious of, that has been with me all my adult life, is to do with women's rights in this sometimes unjust world that can be rough on them. Whenever the opportunity presents itself, I would do or say something on their behalf. Ashe. Tomorrow, just as a side note, we're looking forward to, I'm not going to call her name yet because we haven't confirmed, but to talk to one of our local priests, teachers, as we're reflecting on, this is a solar eclipse, but a lunar eclipse, and some of the ancient traditions that talk about the role that a specific particular group of women played in that. Earlier today, we pour libation for the Empress Men in Conference. And I was moved to talk about how, throughout history, even in just my little cursory glance of history, is women, when the women call for war, when the women call for change, when the women put their hands on their hip, that's the square of justice, the Haitian Revolution and all these things. So that's just the first paragraph. Reading on, I love to stay physically fit by jogging a few miles a few times a week. Humorously, I would say to others who question my interest in jogging that whenever I look back and notice the doctor getting close, I take off running. I'm not gonna read the rest of this. I'm gonna attempt to ask you about some of this as we go through.
Okay.
But again, thank you for joining us. First and foremost, what inspired you to put pen to paper?
Well, I've been writing for a long time.
Mhm.
Never really published anything,
Mhm.
but and I just love writing. And I finally got around to writing enough to publish a book in 2008. It's called Ground Beef for the Mind. There's a lot of satire in there. It has nothing to do with ground beef, but when people have beefs,
Mhm.
so to speak.
Mhm.
But anyways, it's a 150 essay book.
Mhm.
As I mentioned, the name is Ground Beef for the Mind. And you can access it at Amazon.
Mhm.
But I mean, I've always written and written and written, and finally I said, you know what? A great place to start is on stuff that you experience yourself.
Mhm.
Okay, what better than my own life,
Mhm.
where that is concerned? And I know, and I look at my life, and I know that it has a whole lot of stuff that others would enjoy reading and knowing about.
Mhm.
I don't know how my life compares to other people's life, but I know that my life is filled with intrigue, as I call it. So I figured that's the place to start. Let me put pen to paper, as you say,
True.
as you said, and this is what came out of it.
If I may say, you seem, just your countenance look like a very adventurous human being.
That's my nature, and
Like you
you
would
read
enjoy
some of
it for
this.
us to go up in the bush somewhere and find a new waterfall and all those things.
Exactly. That's who I am. And you encounter some of that in here.
Mm-hmm.
First early years in my life, the very first from the year 2, when my age was 2.
Mm-hmm.
It was the very first few years when I was a toddler, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I spent those in Bartica.
Oh.
That in itself was an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
But then I left and I went to Buxton Friendship after that. Mm-hmm. But as you said, there's a lot of adventure in here. Mm-hmm. That's my nature, and my brothers around me, 2 older brothers. Mm-hmm. That's where I got it from. Mm-hmm. We love to go to the jungles and so on and explore anything that's interesting to explore. Mm-hmm. That's where you find us.
I want to ask you something about that before we even move forward, because fast forward to the 21st century now that we're in. where he was born in the 20th century. And for instance, we're in the city of Atlanta right now, and there's a highway that goes around called 285. And most of these major cities have this type of highway. And it was remarked to me years ago, the average youth from the inner city never ventures outside of the beltway. I'm not even. I'm going to ask you, instead of imagining, were you a rich man coming? Was your family materially wealthy?
Not even close.
So then, what was it that not even inspired you? What enabled you all to be so adventurous and step outside the box, especially in a place like Guyana, where transportation is expensive. If you don't have, it's not something that just comes natural that everybody has a motorbike or what would you?
Well, some of it has to do with, as I mentioned, early in life we were living in Bartica, and Bartica is sort of close to the interior, if not. And my brother would take us down into the jungle area. And we would explore, and even at the age of 3, that I was at the time, we probably would get lost sometimes. One day my father found my brother sleeping on a tomb. So, if you have a brother that's 4 years older than you and he's sleeping on a tomb,
you're not afraid.
You got it.
So with the fearlessness,
right,
you can get to see some things in life.
Right. And so we followed him. He took us. He practically made us fearless.
What your father did when he found your brother on the tomb?
Well, he was there because he was trying to escape discipline for something.
Oh God!
But I can't tell you for sure if he still got discipline, or my dad was just amazed that he was so fast asleep on the tomb. Which he probably found it humorous.
Yeah, I could imagine. I could imagine finding my grandson sleeping on a tomb because he ran away from Licks.
Right. It's the same brother that used to come out at nights sometimes and make big balls of fire to give the neighborhood an impression that there was an old hag in the area.
Oh God!
Seriously, the same brother. Yeah. Based on people's superstition.
Yeah. So he, and that's something that I guess is not lost on most of the audience. The fact that he was comfortable sleeping on a tomb. We have a kind of a thing about death and cemeteries and everything, I think of the story that Bunny Wailer told of blessed memory of when Joe Higgs, another great one gone before us, was training him and Bob Marley and Peter Tosh. And he trained them for 2-3 years intensely. And people say, yeah, man, you're ready. And he said, no, man, don't make the head swell up. They ain't ready yet. Their litmus test, their final examination, if you will, where Joe Higgs felt calm or felt at peace with loosing them on the world. They had to sing at the racetrack for the gangsters, for the people who gambling. They had to sing down in what they call Bakawal for the Rastas. And they had to go in the middle of the night and sing at the cemetery. If you said if they could sing at the cemetery and without their voices shaking, they're ready for the road.
Okay, that's interesting. Your imagination runs and you wonder, how did he come up with that?
Yeah.
But as you asked the question, as we are on that topic, I must say it's the same brother also that used to go into the cemetery at night, dressed in white coverings, the La Repentier Cemetery in Georgetown.
Yeah.
And he used to go behind the fences, and he used to jump from tomb to tomb, covered in white, while people were passing. And so
this man, so what they would call wicked, not wicked as a bad person, but
But you can see, from those few,
I see where you get it
stories.
from, right? And this was your big brother.
Yeah.
So you following behind him. Oh, wow.
There was one between the two of us,
Right.
but we used to follow him.
And the middle brother stayed the same way?
He's not as what you call wicked as the first one, but he developed the same, urge for adventure, and longing for adventure.
Give thanks.
We used to go at the back of the cemetery where no one else would go, where it was all jungle, and explore all the old tombs and so on. It's the three of us. So it's in our blood.
Yeah. That's a blessed thing, I recently had to experience something that was very tragic to our family in terms of the loss of a young man in our family. And one of the things that his father remarked is that all his life, from me observing this boy as a youth before he decided on his name, you see that this youth is fearless. And he always prayed for his son, because even though, ironically, what father would want to instill fear in the child? But at the same time, he felt like, boy, you have to have some kind of regardfulness or something, because he's just headstrong and, that kind of way there. So I can imagine what your parents, I say that to say I can imagine what your parents went through. I can imagine, mentally, as a parent myself now, I can imagine what they went through. But then, so that was Bartica. For those people who don't know, Bartica, as you said, is close to the interior of Guyana. Most of the people of the country of Guyana live on the coast, right? So what's called the interior, you're hearing a big controversy now about Essequibo and Venezuela and all of that. A large part of that is deeply forested, deep bush. I've never been myself, and very sparsely inhabited. So coming from Bartica now and coming into Buxton on the coast, what was that like for you?
Well, I was still, very small, and we didn't stay there too long. We just stayed there for 6 months. I mean, I came back to Buxton later 2 times, but initially it was just for like about 6 months. I was still very young, so there's not a whole lot to say about that part. But when I came back as an older youth, then there's tons of, there's a whole lot to say. I mean, I lived every day. And
what ages were you as you lived in Buxton? The second iteration.
The first time when my parents left for England, we all ended up in Buxton Friendship. I was 11. And
ripe age.
And we stayed there for like a year and a half. And even at the age of 11, I used to climb coconut trees for people.
Of course.
For money. At that age. But then I came back when I was 16. And that's where
by that time, he was a rude boy.
A whole lot of the story is for that 7 years that I spent.
Gotcha.
And it was all, a whole lot of it around your dad.
We want to get
very much influenced by you.
We want to get into some of that. As I continue to look at some of the things that stated about yourself in the back, you talk about your love for, or your passion for showing the youth, teaching the youth about mathematics. Again, from your time to now is a different time. Now it seems to be that the youth, in some ironic way, are getting back into math and science from the space of technology, because they're deeply into technology. But there's a time where mathematics and science and everything is like, I don't want to deal with none of that. What intrigued you to make this something to focus on with the youth? You could have focused on them on maybe mountain climbing, all kind of thing you could have focused on.
Interesting. It's interesting that you said so. Mountain climbing, because I did get into mountain climbing later on in life with my, children and grandchildren. But anyway, I had a knack for mathematics, as you can actually that, and I kind of breezed through, math in high school. But I also had a a longing to see others do good in math.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to teach them whenever they would, say, here, help me with this thing here.
Mm-hmm.
And what I discovered is that I had a knack for, honestly, I had a knack for helping others to understand stuff
Mm-hmm.
that they might have a hard time understanding. Someone else teaching them.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever techniques I used to use, I discovered that I had that knack for helping people to understand math. Among other stuff, but I love math, so that's weird. So because I realized I had that special gift, I used it.
You said something very key there in terms of in a way that other people may not have taught them. Pedagogy 101, speaking the language of the people. And so there's many teachers who, it's like, sit down, be quiet, sit in a straight row, don't talk in my classroom, take this lesson by any means necessary. And I would imagine that in older times, they could get away with that, and they could even still be successful in relaying the information, because people saw education as the way out of poverty or the way out of squalor, the way out of a box. So they were self-motivated.
I lived through a lot of that, among others.
So education did something for you that you appreciated from early.
Yeah, that's a story by itself, and it's in here. How my education as a person, how it happened. I started off school 1 year before everyone else, right? Because they discovered my knack for numbers, right? But in other words, I started off school as one of the very smart kids, But between the time that I started off school and that I got to the sixth, what you call sixth standard or whatever,
Yes.
I was very
basically high school time.
Right, but I was very out of sync with schoolwork. I spent years and years of just playing, and my parents wasn't necessarily making sure that I remain a student or studious. So I spent a lot of years not paying much attention to schooling. But then suddenly one day it hit me, you know what? I could be a teacher 1 or 2 years from now if I do so and so. And that woke me up, and that took me back to being a student, how I started out.
It's just reflecting. I appreciate your spirit and your energy, because it causes me to reflect on my own. It inspired me to reflect, When you're telling your story, I think about my own story. And I come from a family of teachers. And school was the very last thing on my mind.
I was that way for many years.
The very last thing on my mind. But then here came some people who inspired me. They conveyed the information in a way that I could say, okay, this is beneficial. This is something I could work with, and that makes a big difference. So just a word of gratitude to all the teachers out there who find it their duty, make it their duty to inspire the youth, and not just rest on the assumption that this is good for you, so you must like it and this and that. There's a saying, I don't know if it's quite a proverb, you might call it a proverb, children effectively learn much better when you teach them what to love than what to learn, basically. When you show them something that they can love, instead of just, well, you must learn this. So there's teachers in the world, I'm sure you've encountered some, who took that approach and pulled out of them that which is in them. We're talking to Baba Mutema Kudakwashe. We haven't even really gotten into the book yet. We're just kind of doing some introduction. And as he keeps saying, to my delight, that's in the book. That's in the book. That's in the book. So let me hold up this book for those of y'all on the screen. Famous I Am Not, because of the ice cream blocks. I want to ask you about the ice cream blocks then, but I don't want to go there right now. I want to stay focused. Another thing you mentioned as a matter of introduction is your relationship with your wife. who you've known since high school. So that's the time you come back to boxing,
Yeah.
around 16.
Yeah, I got there at 16.
Mm-hmm.
Attended your dad's school,
Mm-hmm.
and just about 2 years, a little more than 2 years later, I met her
Wow.
at the same school.
Okay. What was it like? Was it love at first sight? Were you smitten?
Not really. That's how it turned out to be, but it didn't start that way. And
It's in the book.
so the book, how we met, and it wasn't designed. It wasn't like a typical case where a
boy meets girl.
a boy would approach a girl and start something. It didn't happen that way. It's more intricate than that.
Give us a little
Okay,
piece.
okay, I'll tell you. So I was in class, not necessarily in class. I was that school was an interesting place. You know the building probably.
Yes.
Anyone could be there at any time, and just doing anything once there's no classes at school. So I was there with a blackboard, doing my own homework, preparing for exams, and over in the corner was a girl sitting there, and my attention, she didn't get my attention, but someone was there letting her have it, telling her off. And then he kind of tried to keep it quiet. Anyway, he told her whatever he had to tell her, and he left. And I said to myself, well, based on what
you just said about
women and women's rights and so on, I approached her and I said, you don't have to take that kind of nonsense from people. You should learn to represent yourself and stand up for yourself and so on. She didn't say a word. So I went back to her a little after when I noticed she had an open book and she was doing mathematics. I just said, are you doing okay with your mathematics? Because I wanted her to say something. And how she answered, it turned out to be me arranging to help her with some mathematics. And then she would come to school other than school time, and I would work with her because exams were just like 2 months away. And like I said before, I love helping people. Meanwhile, I showed no interest in her as a woman or a girl, whatever, until it hit me one day. She's a pretty, nice young lady, and why not? Looks like she can make a very good friend. So I got home and I said, I'm going to meet her as fast as possible, seeing that this thought occurred to me before someone else takes up that position.
Realizes,
Before someone else takes up that position, she could be talking to someone else at the same time. And so, anyway,
the rest is in the book, I'm sure. I just want to ask you this part before we move from that. In terms of when that came to you, when that realization came to you, did you approach her parents, or how did that work? What was the culture? What I really want to ask is, what was the culture like in the village at that time, where young man meets young woman, 18 years young, so coming of age and all these things. What was the culture? What was the expected norm? Was it courting, the traditional sense? How did that work?
Well, this was a unique situation also. There was courting, but approaching, it was cultural norm also to approach a parent somewhere along the line. Say, like to marry a daughter, whatever. But he didn't get to that until about more than 2 years later.
2 years?
More than 2 years.
What made?
Because our understanding was that her dad didn't want her having any by any boyfriends until he was
School.
sure the school was
Yes.
finished. And even when school was finished, he was still apprehensive, you know. But yeah, it didn't take. And meanwhile, we didn't even know if he knew about the relationship. But it's more than 2 years down the line. It did what the culture approached him with a letter, and so on and so on. But you know, I followed the cultural norm, but it didn't happen. You know,
Right away.
yeah, like I mean, I don't even know if he knew about our existence.
So did you say you didn't know at the time, or you still don't know if you knew?
I still don't know if he knew, but it's too late to ask.
Right.
The mother knew.
Okay. The
The
mother
mother
knew.
knew. Because mother and big girls, she's the eldest daughter. I'm sure
child.
they have that connection. So she told her
But
mother,
don't bother tell your father.
but don't. And the mother, they came up with a code name for me.
A code name.
A code name that they could use in the house without.
It's the first time I hear that one there. Oh my goodness. I got to listen sharper now when I hear my daughter.
Can I tell you what the code name was?
Please do.
The code name was Napoleon.
I couldn't even imagine why. Napoleon. Oh my, this is good. I ain't even cracked the book yet. You make me want to just read this in 2 days. Napoleon. You're a big man to me, so I wouldn't call you Napoleon, but that would be my temptation every time I talk to you from now on, you know.
So she had 10 brothers and sisters. So the mother and 10 brothers and sisters, or she makes 11, they knew who Napoleon was. But Dad, he wasn't privy to that.
So even her brothers didn't spill the tea?
No one spilled it.
And the brothers were cool with you, though?
Yeah. Myself and the older brother, we were in the same class. As normal friends. No one ever spilled the beans.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yes, family, we're talking to Baba Mutema Kudakwashe, and we're talking about his book, Famous. Now, as I said, for full disclosure, I have not read this book, but it's just very intriguing to be able to talk about it, you know, to crack it fresh open. Sad news from England. Well, this is the page I turned to first. Pedophile, with a question mark. And this is very, so I'm going to honor the spirit. This is the page I turned to. What is this chapter about?
Pedophile,
with a question mark.
Well, the question mark is there because, well, I'm pretty sure he was a pedophile. But,
you never got the clear evidence.
Right, but he didn't get, he didn't like give me the absolute proof. But I mean, I'm sure he was. But I was.
Who is this he that you're speaking of?
I was going home from lessons. I was studying for my College of Preceptors. And in the dark night, a man approached me, and started talking. This, that, whatever. Eventually ended up inviting me to come to his house to have dinner. And my understanding is that he had a family. And he was living in close vicinity to where I live, but far enough away. So I thought,
this is in Buxton?
No, this is in
Georgetown,
Campbellville. After I had left Buxton the second time. So, but anyway, he got me to come to his yard, and his family was upstairs. So I felt safe. But he didn't take me upstairs. He kept me downstairs and started asking me questions. And and one of the questions he asked me is if he could play with me.
What?
So I instantly I knew what was happening because his family was upstairs and not taking me upstairs for the dinner that I said, no, I gotta go. And I just took off. And to my, not so much total surprise, he didn't come after me. I just took off down the street, and every second I would look around to see if he's coming. But he disappeared from my life.
You never saw him again?
Well,
This is
yeah,
the book.
this is the book. But I saw him again, but not in that context. In a different context. But the intriguing part
At
is
his funeral?
no. The intriguing part is there was some construction work going on at his house, and he was looking for people to help. And he saw me walking down the street, invited me to come. I'll get paid the same day. Now he doesn't know me, but I recognize him to be the same man. And his yard was filled with people working. And I said, well, I'm on my way to earn a few dollars for my uncle. He's got a net shop. Why don't I stop right here? There's nothing he can do to me because the yard is filled with men and working and so on. But that didn't turn out too good because the house nearly fell on me.
Oh, God.
So that's the part where figure once bitten, twice shy or whatever. I mean, if this man scared the hell out of me the first time, why was I even
considering?
Yeah. So,
but clearly, it had a significant. The first experience had a significant impact on your psyche because you put it in your book of all the different things you could have written about. And it's just funny that because this is something that is very much on the public discourse right now as we speak.
Yeah.
You know, as they say, the emperor, the clothes of the emperor are being removed, so people can really look at the stench in the society and take a deep look, because we have families, we have communities who have just swept these things under the rug, and generations upon generations of hurt children who never get any justice, you know. And so they rise up with a less than savory attitude about adults. They don't see the adults in their life as protectors, which is a natural thing for a child to, you know, a natural perception for a child, you know, to look for the adults for strength. So it's interesting.
I have a mark on my leg right here, right now, that I got running from the falling house.
Wow. Falling house. I wonder whatever happened to him. And you know, he mentioned his name in here, but we'll wait to read the book. But that's so symbolic.
Yeah, his name is not mentioned.
Oh, okay. His name is not mentioned. Okay.
But I described, but his name is not mentioned.
Okay. I saw Mr. Britton.
That's where I went for lessons.
Okay.
For school, high school lessons.
So this person, what was his occupation?
I don't know.
Famous, I am not. Because of the ice cream blocks. Why the subtitle?
Should I explain it or?
Please do.
I explained it at the back of the book, but well, I won't give away the whole thing. But I think it was, you know, sometimes in your life, it's like a fork in the road. If you go that side, or you go that side, it could make your life, it could be two completely different lives. That's all it takes, you know, where you're at an intersection or whatever. Go this way, you go that way, but you really can't go back and know how the other way would have been. You know, there's no possibility. But because this was one of those forks in my life. Because I was not there to sell these ice cream blocks. We used to call them custard blocks. My life in Campbellville was cut short because I went to Buxton and I overstayed my time in Buxton. And I was not there to sell these ice cream blocks. And people that I used to live at, my mother's family, her mother and so on, I had lived there for like 4 years. So they refused to feed me. I was there 3 days without eating. Right? But I guess that, whatever. And so I left there in the middle of the night.
Because you didn't show up
to sell the ice cream.
Ice cream block, which was probably a source of income for the family.
Right.
So they thought like, okay, this man here, we this young man, we giving him room and board, and he's not even carrying his part of the bargain. Because he overstayed his time in Buxton.
Right, right.
What you were doing in Buxton that time?
Staying at my other grandmother.
Okay.
For the summer, you know.
Yeah.
There's no summer, but you know,
Right.
summer break from school.
Yeah.
And was not something deliberate. I didn't even think about it, but they were waiting on me to come to help to sell these.
Mm-hmm.
So now I don't regret 1 minute, because my life in Buxton, where I ended up going back, heading for the next day or two, after I realized that they were not going to feed me. And the truth is, I can't tell you how I made out the 2-3 days without eating. I can't tell you. I can't look back and tell you right now.
I was just going to
I
ask
survived. So I ended back in Buxton with my other grandmother, and my life turned out to be what it turned out to be because I went back there, which I'm sure would have been a totally different life. Not as good as the one that I got from going back to Buxton. So my life took off in this direction. I would not have met my wife. I would not have met your father, and so on and so on. You know, all these significant things.
Yeah, naturally.
If I didn't go back to Buxton, if were it not for those ice cream blocks.
You could have just be another person who sell ice cream blocks and went a different way in life.
Right.
May have still turned out to be a great person as you are and all of that. But you know what happened because
I know what happened, and I would not give up this life that I had, this Buxton life with your dad and so on, and my grandmother, you know, meeting my wife and so on and so on. I would not give that up for anything.
Yes.
So I know it took a good course because of the ice cream blocks.
Good. Give thanks, and that's something about the fork in the road, as you say.
Yeah.
We encounter many forks in the road, and it's a beautiful thing to not have regret.
Yeah. Again, that's the point.
No regrets.
In fact, I love it.
True.
I love it.
So this book here is filled with, if I just look at some of the chapters. And as I'm looking through the chapters, you said that your life was kind of split into 3 parts in terms of where you live: in Canada, United States, and in Guyana. At what times did you live at those 3 places?
Well, it's like a third of my life each way. The first 23 years of my life took place in Guyana. First 23 years. 1 month short of 23. And then I lived the next 23 years in Canada. And then I came to the US. So,
and in terms of the migration pattern, for people who don't know, Guyanese people tend to congregate in certain places.
Yeah.
Canada, New York, Washington, Miami to a certain extent, or London, you know, generally speaking. I mean, there's Guyanese people everywhere. But even when you have Guyana Day now, which happens in Atlanta every year, busloads of people coming from those places. So coming out of Guyana, coming out to the bush where you're used to adventure and you're used to, you know, I'm sure you help yourself to people, mango and everything else, you know, and all those things. Coming into Canada, what was that experience? Do you remember what your initial thoughts were, your emotions were when you touched Canada, touched down in cold Canada? Like even right now, we outside in Atlanta with t-shirts. I'm told in Canada it's still snow. What was that like for you?
Well, it whatever it was, it just fitted the situation to the point whereby I did not lament. See, because what I was coming from, and you get it all in the book, what I was coming from in Guyana caused Canada to be very welcoming when I was leaving in Guyana, my situation in Guyana at the time. And so, you know, all I could basically concentrate on was, what is this place going to do for me? Like, I was attending University of Guyana, and I didn't get to complete that because life was, at that time, I just gotten married and so on. Anyways, you'll see it all when you. So when I landed in Canada, that was it seemed like a glorious opportunity to make up for all that, that caused me to leave Guyana. And so I was more concentrating on this opportunity
than what you left behind.
Right, except that after a few years, in the middle of the winter, I would feel like, you know what, I should be in Guyana. Maybe I should. This is where I should be.
Did you visit?
Yeah, I visited there after 3 years. But what I mean is that when I say so, I mean I should be back and living.
Yeah, move back. Right. I know what you mean.
Right.
I know what you mean.
But by then, family, you get kids and so on, and it just. But yeah, it was a situation such that I didn't regret at the time because I know what I was coming from, what the situation was, what caused me to travel, and I ended up in Canada, and my wife joined me exactly 2 months after.
After you reach,
which by itself, I think that in itself is, interesting, unique.
Yes, definitely. She came quick.
Yeah,
she came quick. That's beautiful. I mean, that's beautiful on many levels. So I want to ask you something, Baba Mutema. I don't know if it's in the book or not, but one of the things that I am very intrigued about, and we highlight on the program a lot, is about the whole wedding eve reality in Guyana, amongst the African people, what we call kwekwe. Did y'all have a kwekwe?
Yeah. Interestingly, I kept the kwekwe, and she kept the wedding. Or I kept the kwekwe, and her dad kept the wedding reception. I was in charge of the kwekwe. He was in charge of the wedding reception. Now, he took it upon himself. I didn't have what it took to have a good wedding reception, and I probably was not going to have one if but he decided he wanted one for his daughter, and so he took charge of that. So I kept the kwekwe, and the kwekwe was kept at County High School.
So for people listening who don't know where is kwekwe, explain so a baby can understand. What is kwekwe?
Well, another name for it is wedding eve. Wedding eve, where you just get together and have a good time with friends and family. And conkeys is the number one ingredient of what you're going to eat. Probably cook up rice and you beat the drums, sing and dance, and have a general good time. It's another name for wedding eve, but kwekwe is the source of the name is African. And,
other than those foods you mentioned, are there any elements that are important to that stood out for you in your kwekwe?
Well, we sang a lot. It's the music, the songs. We sang a lot of songs with meaning, but we left any kind of ritualistic, rituals and so on for the wedding itself. Because we had an African brother who did all the rituals with the honey and the salt and the pep and so on. But that could have taken place on the wedding eve on the kwekwe, but it was all left for the wedding itself.
And what year was this?
1971. But you could say, in a sense, that I had 2 weddings. Because the local guy, he performed the ceremony according to the government of Guyana stipulations. And so this was the legal part of it. And then we had the African ceremony performed by an African visitor. His name was Oyen Lola.
Oyen Lola, okay. My father mentioned him. I think he was prominent in my father and mother's wedding as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Oyen Lola. Okay.
Yeah, maybe that's where I got it from.
Oyen Lola. Okay.
They got married before us.
Wow, it's a small world. So I mean, it's intriguing to me because again, when I'm looking from my perspective at the fact that so many of us have lost a touch of our culture. And I don't just mean the culture in an emotional sense, not to dismiss emotion, they're very important. A very practical tools, for our move forward. It's just something that when I look at, I want to know, well, what are the elements? What are the things about this culture that have made these people thrive through all their different generations, through all these different dispensations? What are the golden threads that allow these people to still remain strong? Even though they go through economic degradation, they may go through change of governments, all kind of stuff. So, the family, as the proverb say, the ruin of a nation begins in the home of its people. Also, so does the power of a nation. We often look at the negative part, but it's also, the ruin begins in the home of its people because of how fundamental the home is.
Right.
So naturally, I would surmise that the rise of a nation begins in the home of its people too.
Right.
So you reached Canada about 23, 24 years old.
Just short of 23, but 23 is good enough.
Mm-hmm. And other than those midnight revelation or suggestions in your mind, like, why I should really go back home, what was it like for you? Were you immersed in the Caribbean community there, or what part of Canada were you?
In Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where most of the Caribbean community would be. So, you could say so, but not necessarily immersed. But all my associates and friends were from Guyana or maybe another West Indian place. For example, in my second year, I went to Electronic College, and I met guys there from Jamaica and Trinidad and so on. So there's a taste of West Indian. Otherwise, you go shopping in the West Indian community also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm just thinking of there's a film called Small Axe, which is done by Steve McQueen, and he did a great job. This covers Black British or Africans from the Caribbean living in Britain. After the Windrush thing,
right.
That he touches on some real critical points. Like there was I don't want to forget the name of this place. It's a Trinidadian establishment, but it became the center of activity when the community began to rise up against racism.
Not Brixton.
No, Brixton is the name of the place, but
okay.
You would know the rest. You probably would know the name of the place if you hear it. But anyway, it just goes into. It does a good job of painting a picture of community, and how people got through.
Okay.
When they were isolated. I don't know if it's the same thing in Canada. Did you find that the African community and the Caribbean community was isolated from the rest? Y'all experienced overt racism and all those types of things?
Not necessarily so. I mean, I'm sure there. I experienced. I can give you an example where I experienced some racism, but not. There was no. It was not in comparison or comparable to like in Britain. It was not. I guess it could be that one of the reasons was that the prime minister at the time was Pierre Trudeau, and he was very immigrant friendly, and it's because of him that a lot of us got to go to Canada because he set the rules so that you could come from any part of the British Commonwealth, and you can ask you can present yourself, present your credentials, and so on. And he would allow you to say if you qualified. For me, I guess he set the tone. So, to me, if he set the tone and he's the prime minister, but I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't there. Racism wasn't there. That's far from the truth. But it was a different situation from London, England, probably. But the West Indian community, as we know, they rallied together and they supported each other. And for example, we have the saying, if you're in Toronto, right, and let's say you feel threatened by somebody, whatever. If someone nearby is a Jamaican, and he presents himself to be Jamaican, then you're sort of protected. that probably has a little bit of ingredients of what you're talking about. The Jamaicans would be like the stalwarts, people don't mess with the Jamaicans. So if you have someone that's Jamaican that's standing up for you or backing you or whatever, you felt kind of safe. In Toronto, I'm talking about.
Yes. Everyone played their part. That's interesting. Yes, family. We're live on the Ancestral Rock, 89.3 on the FM dial, WRFG.org. We're live every Thursday from 2 to 4 p.m. As I said before, we are just doing this interview. We're taking the opportunity, really, the blessed opportunity, I would say, to sit down with Baba Mutema as he is here with family in Atlanta and cracking open his book, which I really look forward to reading. I mean, I know you're not just saying that for the sake of the interview when you said it's in the book, because I just look at this and I see chapters like divine intervention with a question mark, time for a reassessment, that car, a totally unexpected wedding. And we go on and on through the book. Canadian adventure. So back to Parkdale. So when you left Linda's Turn, let me just go to Linda's Turn for a minute. This chapter deep down in the book. By the time you get there, that's page 297. It don't seem like a difficult read at all. It seems like a very engaging read, Tell us about Linda's Turn.
Well, I was my grandmother. Well, I came up with an excuse to go visit my grandmother 3 years after I left. It was time to go see her. But I didn't really have the days off work. So I, created an excuse. My grandmother wasn't feeling well and so on. I want to go pay her a visit. So I got a week off from work. So I got to travel back to Guyana 3 years after. In the meantime, 3 years might look like a long time, but that 3 years passed so fast that, and the reason is because you're grinding, you're looking at all kind of options. You're dealing with immigration and all the different things and so on, and you're bringing in the baby and his grandmother arriving, and then we got a new baby. So 3 years passed like whoops. So I took the chance to go visit my grandmother with my little baby daughter. And so Linda didn't make it. She couldn't make it because she had a new job, and you can't take vacation when you just start a new job. So another year or so, I think, it was her turn. So it was her turn to go back to Buxton.
Go home. Yes.
And, and renew acquaintances and
lovely
up with the family.
Lovely.
And so on. And it was a memorable trip.
Lovely. I can imagine. So I want to ask you, I know her father is now an ancestor, a great stalwart of our village, Buxton, Mr. Rigby Dover. After that initial approach or lack thereof, did you feel like you really had his approval, his support?
Oh, definitely. But I mean, it was surprising in the sense that, like I said, I have no clue until today. I have no clue whether he knew about me before I sent him that letter. And I should have asked him before he left this world, but I didn't, and only he's got the answer. I don't know. I mean, it was years. But what was you going to ask something?
No, I was going to ask you if you could give us a little hint about what was in the letter.
Oh, yeah, it was just the regular letter.
Did somebody help you write the letter?
No.
You just wrote it from your own heart.
Yeah, I wrote him, told him that, his daughter is so-and-so personality. I'm in love with his daughter. She's this and she's that. A lot of nice stuff. But the clincher was, of course, is because of you.
You kissed the ring.
The clincher, yeah, because of course it's because of you, how you brought her up, that she's got these qualities. So that to me that was the clincher, and he didn't like to hear anything better than that.
What man would not, unless he feels you're just joking, because he must have felt your sincerity too, because Mr. Dovo is no fool by any estimation.
Exactly.
I like how you put the clincher in there, though. Take notes, young boys. Take notes, you know what I mean? Do the old school way, you know. I love it, man. I love it. Yes. So we're talking about family. We're talking about a journey through different stages of life. Your journey, you know. And we're so grateful that you took the time to really put pen to paper and share this journey with the world. You know, the intrigue of 3 countries, Guyana, Canada, and the U.S., that live by one man. Now, when you moved to the U.S., why did you move there? What made you move to the U.S.?
Well, put it in simple terms, I was becoming an old man, Canada style.
Mm-hmm.
I was just in my 40s. But, excuse me, probably because Canada had a recession. They created this recession. It was not a worldwide recession, it was a Canadian recession.
Mm-hmm.
And so employers became choosy and picky.
Mm-hmm.
And so people look at your age and you're in your 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Now we don't need you. We got young guys.
Mm-hmm.
We got young IT guys who do the same for less.
Oh, IT is your trade.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do the same for less. These young guys. So in your 40s, you were like an old man. And my wife used to work at a firm, an accounting firm, and she actually heard some of the partners discussing this issue about age and so on. So she kind of confirmed based on what she heard at our firm concerning age and employment and so on. So when some Americans showed up and say, we have work over here, we need IT people, I just jumped at the opportunity. And when they said, come on and join us, and believe it or not, I felt like a young man again when I got over here.
Where did you go in America?
Florida.
Okay.
But there was no sense of being old. None, zero. No sense whatsoever.
And you come out of the cold too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm sure that would help. I'm sure I can't even imagine living years and years in that cold. What does this do to your bones and everything? You know?
I can't exclude that for sure. I was definitely glad to be somewhere warm.
And you see some mangoes again and all these things growing on tree.
Yeah, I saw a few mango trees. I got one in my yard right now.
Lovely.
Big mangoes.
You plant your own.
Yeah. I got mango trees and papaya trees right in my yard right now.
You know, there's so much that I want to talk to about this book, but for the sake of time, I would just like to seal up with a few things.
Okay.
Because it's really intriguing. No pun intended, you know. It's really intriguing. You said that your first choice of a major when you first applied to continue your studies at University of Toronto was nursing. I wouldn't say I'm surprised, just having met you and feeling your countenance. You have a very nurturing kind of countenance. But
thanks.
Instead of math and I'm thinking, why nursing? Instead of something that use more mathematics.
Well, I mean, I ended up there, but maybe I don't know. I had a. Let's see, was she there? I have a sister-in-law who was a nurse. Now, I don't know for sure if she had any influence on me. She came from Guyana and she became a RN in Canada and so on. But maybe that part of me that you mentioned, you know, taking care of, you know, people and justice and that kind of stuff. For some reason that came across as something that I should try and become a nurse, you know, a nurse, not necessarily an RN, but a nurse with a bachelor's degree, which is, you know, in charge of a ward or something like that, you know. But maybe that part of me, that, you know,
desire to help people.
Right.
Something come to my mind I must ask because here it's clear in my spirit. It was intriguing to me when I discovered it, I was a father by this time, newly divorced, um, 4 daughters, and my eldest daughter came to live with me for a year in Philadelphia. I left Atlanta and went to Philadelphia to teach for 3 years, And one day I'm just sitting here, visibly, they say, displaying public displays of affection, And she is a little seventh grade girl. Daddy, stop, blah blah blah. And then a woman said we used to visit a Jamaican shop often to get some food after school and everything. I'm teaching, long days and everything. And so this woman said, "You're lucky because when I growing up, there was no there was no affection at all. Is what do you mean? My parents never tell him I love you. What do you mean if I love you? I have to pay this, that, and that.
I feed you
I
every day.
love you. What do you mean? What about I love you? And now
I
it's
know what you
something
mean.
that is seen as fundamental to articulate that,
I lived
not
through
just to
that.
show that. I want to ask you.
I lived through that transition.
You lived through the transition.
Mm.
Oh, the transition from hard and stiff, and just look. This is your job is to do your homework. What about talking about love? Your job is to get your thing to a more compassionate approach.
Well, I lived through the transition in the sense that I lived through the time when that you're talking about there where parents never hugged their kids and all that kind of stuff. And my wife said that her father never hugged any of them. But I mean, sometime back in Canada, around 1980s or something like that, that period, I lived through that period where I experienced this transition whereby it became normal thing to do. Hug your kids, hug your friends, whatever, and say I love you and so on. And it was a 180-degree turn from from my early years to what I saw, and I became part of it too. And it's so easy and natural now for my whole family basically to say I love you and so on and so on. And we have a forum every 2 weeks. One is supposed to be on like today, and we end the forum by everyone says I love you, love you all and so on. But that was not the case. In the first so many years of my life, it was.
And they felt to their defense, they felt like, well, I'm demonstrating my love.
Right.
Where's even the question? What are you talking about?
I feed you every day.
You're talking about love. You better make sure you sweep out the bottom house. Love. There's so many places we can go in this book. I want to end on 2 notes. First, there's a chapter that says, "But there's a time to dance and sing." But there's a time to dance and sing. Tell us about that chapter, please.
Well, I had just finished a chapter here.
What a year.
What a year. What a year. And you read that, you will see that it covers a lot of tragedies and so on. Some like this book, even though it's sort of autobiographical, but it's not about me. It's about me and the world around me. So in that chapter before, I talk about John Lennon being shot right in front of his apartment building.
Yes.
And I talk about Mao Zedong. And after he died, his wife got, thrown in prison. I mean, and some other world affairs stuff that that are on the serious side. Some tragical things and so on. And there's more in that chapter about other events that took place around that time, serious tragical events over. So now those are the things, the serious things. Now it's a time to dance, but there is a time to dance and sing, which is
1981. Bob Marley died that year too. Yeah.
And so my wife is now going home to attend a wedding. So there's other than this serious part of the world, which could be depressing or traumatic or whatever, there's a time to dance and sing. So my wife is now heading home to Cheryl's wedding, her sister's wedding. And that's what that chapter
Yes. I mean, I'm just flipping through the chapter just to read, just for the sake of the audience, call out some of the names of these chapters. A very wrong course, in parentheses, the parental learning curve. The marijuana dance. I could just imagine what that's all about. Back to Parkdale. The Canadians. All together. It just, I can tell that you're taking us into your life. A year for the times. From the first chapter, which is Baby Boomer. Right? From the first chapter, which is the Baby Boomer, after the prologue and everything, Baby Boomer, all the way to the final chapter, which is, what is this? My Rebirth. That's the final chapter. Yeah, My Rebirth. I mean, thank you again. Thank you. I haven't even read the book yet, and sincerely, I'm not just saying this for the sake of the camera or whatever. I really look forward to reading this book because it feels like there's something that can resonate with me, and that's the beauty of art, including novels and autobiographies, anything that basically is put forth with a creative labor of love. There's something about that that really helps to strengthen all humanity. That's the power of art. On a not so selfish note, I heard you mention the other day about a chapter about my father.
Yeah, it's called Giant of a Man.
I want to seal up with that. We were together celebrating his 99th birthday. And as I told people that I've introduced you to today, you knew me before I knew myself. So tell us about that chapter.
Page 133.
Mm-hmm.
It's a chapter called A Giant of a Man.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all about your dad, what I experienced with him and of course, this is by no means the only chapter on your dad. He's all over.
Mm-hmm.
He's all over, but this chapter was dedicated to him. And these words came from your mom.
Oh, really?
Yeah. These words are your mom's words that I'm using here, Giant of a Man. That's when she first encountered him in Guyana. And that's her assessment of him. So when she sent reports back to the US, this is what she said. This is what her headline was. I just, not necessarily but the quotation, a giant of a man, is sort of like, I just met a giant of a man. That was her assessment. So here was an American writing back to America saying, I just discovered a giant of a man.
You can give us one anecdotal story about my father. I've been learning so much about him, and I haven't been ignorant of his life, and in any way, I would say. I've been interviewing him about his life since the 90s, but recently I'm just hearing all these things about him, other than, the stuff about disappearing and the police, and, we grew up knowing all of this. But if something comes to your mind, maybe something that's not even in the book, that you would share with the audience that would characterize your relationship with him.
My relationship? Well, I did mention one, for example, whereby he asked me to visit my grandmother. Now, I assume he wanted to go talk about old-time story, because he's a generation above him, and want to go learn some history or something. So I was leaving home one day, and I saw him coming through the street, and I said, "Oh, this is a good time. I'm leaving. They can have their privacy." And so when I got back home later that evening or whatever, that's when she said, Mr. Sidney King was here, and he said that you and Linda should get married.
This was surprising to you?
Yeah.
You didn't know he knew about your relationship?
No, he knew about the relationship, but he had a different assessment of it from what I thought that he would have. And so that was a surprise.
Why would you have thought he had a different assessment?
Well, okay. First begin, why was he assessing the situation such that he thought that it was something that he wanted to do or felt like doing? In other words, whatever. I mean, they're together. They look like they love each other. Whatever. I mean. But he thought that he should interject and play a role.
Mhm.
So why did he decided that he should interject and play a role? That was the intriguing part. That was the surprise. Why? The why. See?
Did you ever ask him?
No. No, I never did ask him.
You still got a chance to ask him.
Yeah, you still there.
There were some questions you didn't get to ask Mr. Dover of blessed memory. So
Right.
maybe. Thank you so much, Baba Mutema Kudakwashe, or Kudakwashe, for again. This is a beautiful. I'm just holding it in my hand, family, for those y'all can see. A full story, and we know for a fact that storytelling is going to take us home. Why? Because just like for those of you who are adherents to different religions, I'm talking about whether it's from the Bible to the Quran to Odu Ifa, there are stories about humanity, essentially. There are stories about humanity. There are stories about people's experiences. And we get to find out that, if one person is having this experience, 1,000 people are having it in their own way. So even hearing someone's perspective on the same thing you might have gone through is often so liberating, often give you a new perspective, often affirming, make you feel like, okay, it was not me alone. You never know. So thank you so much.
Thank you
For sharing this with us. And thank you for being here today with us.
Thank you very much for having me too. I should mention that there are quite a few other people mentioned in here by name.
Yes.
That I had association with us through high school days and so on.
Definitely.
So if you discover yourself in here, you played a role in some impression on my life.
Give thanks. So I want to ask you, let's handle the business. How can this book be acquired?
Okay, it's going to be on Amazon in a week or two.
So it's fresh off the press.
Yeah, it just published in March.
Fresh.
Yeah, just last month.
Mm.
The February, just late February, they told me the book is now published.
Mm-hmm.
So right now it's available on bookstore.duranspublishing.com. That's right now. That's where it is.
Type that in the thing because I got this. Seems like the computer is going out. Bookstore.
Yeah, bookstore. Dot Dorrance DORR ANCE. I
was spelling Dorrance all kind of different.
Publishing.com. That's where you can find it right now. But another week or two, you find it on Amazon or what's the name of that bookstore? Barnes and Noble.
Okay. We know it's a classic.
But initially, it's available on Duran's site because they want it to be available there first,
right,
before anywhere else.
So they're the publishers.
Yeah.
Well, I want to offer you.
Or you can call me for further info. If you need any information, you can call me also.
Definitely. And your number for people who want to call you?
407 314 3483.
407 314.
Go back.
407
yeah.
314
3483.
That's Baba Mutema. What does your name mean? I've been meaning to ask you.
Mutema means that I'm a black person.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like you see.
And from what culture in Africa does the name come?
There's some Bantu.
Mm-hmm.
And the last name, Kudakwashe, means here's a person who's interested in trying to do, to do God's will. I'm not. It doesn't mean that person who lives up to God's will, but it's a person who's going to try to.
I see.
Who's going to put in an effort to live up to God's will.
I see. Thank you so much, Baba Mutema, for joining us. We're honored to have you here. And again, I can't say enough. Thank you for taking the time and following the inspiration.
And thank you for having me also, and for all your listeners, and so on and so on. I know you definitely would. Anyone would enjoy. One person read the book out in like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, man.
She said she couldn't put it down.
That's
So,
what it seemed like to me. That's what it seemed like to me. That's what it seemed like. So I'm looking forward to this. Looking forward to this. Family, much love. Stay tuned to yourself. Stay tuned to yourself at all times. All right? One love.
one love.